Let's take a look at how we would create a very simple blog app using Handyjs. Right now, we have a folder layout, which will be very familiar with anyone who's ever used Express. Express is a very popular Node.js framework. The only thing you might notice is that right here we have the Handy folder, and that's where we keep all the Handy files in just one area. So let's open app, which is where we start the application. And we have a couple things that we require. So we require Express, path module, HTTP module, and next we have we're bringing in Handy using these two require methods, Handy wrapper and getting Handy from that. And then we also require the project file, which is where we would put any of the additional JS files for the blog application itself. Now, the way Handy works is that we simply mount Handy as a sub-application. This is a very little known piece of functionality that Express provides, whereby when you mount an application as a sub-application, it provides all the functionality within that underlying application, in this case Handy, becomes available to whatever you build on top of it. And this really helps in keeping Handy and your project separate. It allows us to upgrade Handy very easily without disrupting anything. We just simply drop a new version of Handy into that folder, and any new functionality we have in Handy, any bug fixes automatically become available to you. You don't even have to change anything on your project itself. As long as you're using all the APIs that Handy provides, that's just very simple way you can just do it. So here we have a number of very simple environmental things that we've set up. You should be familiar with these already. We're setting to compress all our responses. We set the port. We are allowing Express to handle the variables that are passed in any kind of posts, which we'll use in the forms. We set up favicon. We declare where our routes are coming from. Also, we declare the public directory where we will serve any static files like any of the CSS or JavaScript, any of those kind of files get served from there. We also define what the views directory is, as well as what the views engine we're using, in this case Jade. And lastly, we set up the where we send any 404 errors. Then we start up Handy, and we have a bootstrap routine in Handy called initialize. And once this runs, we provide a little bit of information to you as to whether it's completed successfully or whether installation is required. And lastly, we start the actual product itself. So this is where, so once Handy has gotten up and running, then you can actually start your whatever additional web app you've built on top of Handy. All right. So why don't we go ahead and start Handy and see what happens. Great. So Handy just got started, and it's provided us a little bit of information. So very simple. It's told us about the server, Express server is available, listening on the port. We have the Redis connection. We're operating in production mode, but there is an error. We cannot find the configuration file, and it's telling us the installation is required. So let's go ahead and install Handy. Is to provide you with this installation screen, and here is where you can set a couple bits of information about your site. So the site name, let's just call it my first blog. The site email, this is the email that will send any kind of site where any kind of site email messages will be sent from. So if someone registers on your site and they're getting a confirmation email or a request to confirm their email addresses, this is where it will come from. So at handyjs.org. Now, Handy of course needs a database to manage all the information that's being created. So let's call that blogdb. The database user is, let's plug up the administrator for this site. So let's call him the blog master, and he has a blogmaster at handyjs.org, and he also has a password. So the installation is now complete, and you have the ability to go in and change some of the information you provided before, but let me just go quickly. We wouldn't really bother changing any of these things, but let's just show what's available. You have the chance to change where the front page of your application is, the login destination where users who've logged in get forwarded, redirected up to, setting custom 404 pages or 403 pages. You can also set up the email server for this application. So the password for the email server, where it's located, and provide information so that Handy can send emails for you. You have the ability to set Google Analytics ID there, and so that will be automatically included in any pages that you request it to be on. Handy also has the ability to run cron tasks. So this is the path to the cron facility within Handy, and you see there's a little bit of a cryptic path in here, and that's just a little protection against someone maliciously calling your cron repeatedly and basically attacking your site. That way they would have to know exactly what the path is, and each one of course is separate, is different for every installation. And of course you can also set backups and have Handy send backups either to an email address or to a local file path. So all of these things are things that you can have Handy do. There's also more stuff around account settings, managing your users, and content settings, and so on. But we don't really need to go through that for this exercise. Let's go back to our application and continue working on creating the blog. So now we need to start to, the very first thing, obviously, if we want to create a blog, we need to define what are the blog content. And let's do that under the project.js. And in here, all we've done is to load Handy, make Handy available so that all the APIs are available in this JS file. And we have the start function. The start function is you know, as it's suggests, is something that would run after Handy is fully loaded, so that you can now start to define any part of your application. So let's go ahead and introduce the code that would define the blog content type itself. So just doing a little paste in here, just make it faster in typing. We have first of all created a blog definition variable, and this is just an object that has two particular parameters. The first is init and the second is the schema. The init, all it does is to set up any default values for that particular content type. So if you wanted a particular title, or if you wanted all blog content to have a specific value whenever they're created, this is where you would define that. And the next is the schema, and this basically just provides some information around how the tables are created. Right now we don't really have to provide much. We're just telling it it's the content type, the name is blog, and the table name we want to use is blog. Now the next step here is to define a variable that says new content, where we add this object that says we're going to create a new content with the name of blog, and with the definition of blog definition, we're going to use this to create it. If we wanted to create more than one piece of content, you could add another object in here and say the name of, I don't know, bug filing or whatever, and call that name bug filing and provide another definition, and then you could pass them into this Handy API. The content create new content type. And what this does is to take this information and use it to create all the tables, set up all the APIs, and set up all the information, the permissions, everything we need to be able to do access control, to have the XML file types, to backups, everything gets set up using this with this API. And if there's any error, of course, you'll come up with a low error message to let you know that that's what's happened. So once this runs, once we run the start of this application, the first thing it will do is it will create the new content type. Now, obviously, if you run the application more than once, this is smart enough not to overwrite anything that's been done before. You'll actually recognize that, yes, the content type already exists and it will not disturb anything. So there's no problem having this run several times. Now, the next thing you need to do, obviously, is set up a route that helps Handy to create, that you want your project to be able to create, to set up a form that allows people to actually put in the new blog posts. And that's what we're going to do next. So we open index.js under the routes folder. And we have, as usual, we've included Handy, made it available so that we can use the APIs that Handy provides. And we've added another library called underscore. And this is a very, very, very useful general purpose utility application. So we want to put the routes, and we would have the routes inside this function here. And let's put in the routes for the blog creation form. Let me explain what's going on here. So we've set up a route that's called create blog post, and we provided a little bit of environmental information to that particular route. So this is just setting the title, providing some information on the configuration, which just has a lot of information about the sites. It helps to set up the page and who the user is, what the site information is, and some other information about what's going on that particular page. And then we're going to render something called the blog form. We're going to render a page called, a view called the blog form. And so we also need to create the blog form itself under the view. So let's do that now. And let's put in some Jade, old Jade template. Now I'm sure, hopefully you're familiar with how Jade works, but I'll explain a little bit about what it's a templating language. It basically converts this into HTML and JavaScript as needed. So the very first thing we have here is extending the layouts. The layout is just a simple structure we've already created that sets up the header, sets up the content, sets up all the scripts that are getting loaded. It's just a way of a shorthand for helping you to create HTML files very, very quickly. But in this case, we are modifying the content block. And so we have a little bit of JavaScript here that sets up a whole lot of things. So it looks very complex, but I would suggest that you look away for right now, because all of this is doing, it's just helping us for later on when we're creating an edit form for this. And so it's not really useful for just the part about displaying the form itself, but it will come in useful much later on, but I just included it right now. And we just have a very simple form that includes cross-site request protection. This is something that you get from Express itself. And we have a bunch of inputs. The first being the title, the body, we have the URL, and have a checkbox that lets us know that we can set to determine whether this blog post gets published, is immediately published or not. So you can control whether this goes into a draft or not. And lastly, we just have the buttons to help us submit the form. So it's a very simple form, nothing complex. And so let's just save that. Let's go into index itself and save this. Let's save all the things we've modified. And we should have the form available for us. So now that we have saved everything, let's restart restart Node, because you okay, let's go to So now we have the form. It's got the title, it's got the body, it's got the URL, it's got a rating, it's got the check lets us know whether it's published right away or it's going to a draft, and we can just save it. Now you might ask, when we were defining the blog content type, we never set a title, we never defined a body, we never defined a URL or a rating. How come we have all of this right there? And that is because Handy automatically provides every content type with this attributes, simply because it knows that this is something that's very common across all different content types. So you don't really have to define them again with Handy, because Handy has already done them. Now we could fill this out and submit it, but we haven't yet set the route that's going to process the results of this form. So we need to set that up first before we can fill this out. So let's go do that now. Now to add the route that's going to process the blog post display, so let me explain what's going on here. We have the route, which is blog and a path to that particular blog post. We have a access control, which we're saying, hey, can this user view this particular content type, which is blog? And so Handy has an API that helps you set access control based on roles, and also check if a particular user has the rights to actually view, modify, edit, delete, all those kind of things. We have a whole bunch of environmental variables which we're setting, just the title, configuration, type of content type, and the database pool we're connecting to. Some code that's helping us to retrieve the particular ID of the blog post from the alias that's been sent over. And then Handy just allows us to load a new instance of the blog and load the particular blog post that we've already saved in there. That way we can actually continue to use Handy APIs to, one, make the display safe so that you are skipping all sorts of script tags and HTML, make it HTML display safe, blog display view itself. So that's how you would manage the route, and so we can save this. We also now need to build the blog display. So that's empty right now. Let's fill that up. And let's just post a little bit of Jade. So it's a Jade file, and right now you should be familiar. We are just extending the layout as we did before, and we are modifying the content portion of the layout. We have set some values based on what we've passed into this particular file. We've set the title, the body, the URL, all the information about the blog posts, and then we just do a little setting up the HTML that would display this. So let's save this as well, and now we can go on to actually testing our form and making sure that it works. So let's restart Node. And create our blog entry. Some nonsensical text in there. Now we have the we can enter a particular URL we want that will reference this blog post. Right now we're going to leave it blank, and Handy will automatically fill it in for us. We can apply a rating to this, so let's rate this a 2, and let's save it. So the URL, it's got a rating, and it's got a content ID of 4. So what does this mean, content ID of 4? Well, if you look at it, the URL for this blog post is this blog, The Quick Brown Fox. So Handy just used the title and used it to create something for us. But what if we went in and edited this and changed this in the future to something much more SEO friendly? We still want to be able to have a permalink that will always link to this, regardless of whether we're changing the URL, and we make sure links don't break. So that's what this content ID is for. So if we just put blog 4, you'll see that we still reference this exact same content. So while this URL is free to change, this particular content ID will not change, and you'll always be able to access this content using that particular content ID itself. So this is, this is great. It's interesting, but it's not much of a blog post if you can't really add any comments. So let's see how we would go about allowing us to add some comments in there. So first off, let's modify the route so that we can actually pass information about current comments in there. And the get related comments. So Handy also provides an API that allows you to get any kind of content that's related to whatever content you're displaying, in which case we're asking for give us all the comments that are related to this particular blog post, and then display everything. So we also have to modify the display, obviously, to show us the comments and as well as the comment form. So if we go back to blog display and we add we're adding a section that displays a comment form. So this section here is all about the comment form. Allows you to leave a comment, and this section here is just going to display any related comments that have been submitted. So let's go in and look back at so we've got to restart Node. Now let's view our blog post. And now our blog post has a comment form that's attached to it, and that allows us to leave any comments. Right now there are no comments there, so let's leave something. This is as is apropos, let's leave a trolling comment, and let's save that. And now the new comment has been created, and you can see it's now being displayed along with the blog post. So Handy already has all this very, very interesting. It's got the comments built in, and you don't really have to add any code to process the comments. It's saved, it's displayed, everything gets done for you automatically with the comments, as well as some of the other content types that are built in. Now, obviously, you probably do want to be able to edit this particular blog post itself. So we have the blog post, we can add comments. Someone said it's not very useful, so why don't we edit it and make it a little bit more useful? So let's go in and add some capability that allows us to edit this blog post. And we want to just add the route that gives us that. So now I want to add a route to edit the blog post itself. And and let's go through what this is. So this is the path to edit the blog post. It's edit, blog, and whatever the path to that particular blog post is. We have, as usual, we have some of the environmental parameters we're setting there. We have the code to retrieve the ID of the blog post, just in case you pass the alias instead of an ID. And then we simply just load the blog posts as usual from memory, as well as make all of that information available back to the blog form as defaults. So let's save this and let's go and restart and see what happens when we go to edit. So we see the blog post we have right now. This is blog 4. Let's go for edit. And now we have the form and it's all filled in, and let's say the first sentence, first is the shortest that contains all the letters of the alphabet. So you can add a little bit more information to it, and let's save changes. And there you have it. The blog post just got updated and the blog edit was successful. So that's it, and the content is still there. And we can add more content, more comments. Now this is more interesting. And the comments just keep getting added to it. And so we've successfully created a very simple blog application that allows us to create blog posts, leave comments, and edit that blog post as well. So I hope this gives you a good idea of what you can do with Handy very, very quickly. Handy really helps to abstract a lot of the complexity of creating a web application. So not only have we handled a lot of the creation of content, saving it, retrieving the content, connecting pieces of content together, but we've managed access control, so we can set permissions and change permissions as needed using a graphical interface. You can also have things like the sitemap already created for you. So let's look at what the sitemap looks like. So already we have a sitemap that's already created that contains all the content. So all of this stuff is just done. It's submitted to Google or Bing automatically. Backups. So a whole lot of the stuff that you would spend a bunch of time working on is already done for you. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you are interested in Handy or have any other questions. Please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you. Bye.